You're probably throwing money away on car repairs, and it's not really your fault. Mechanics are hoping that you will, and they've gotten really good at making sure you pay too much. But there are 15 key ways to beat mechanics at their own game, and I've used all of them to save over $25,000 on engine repairs, which has let me and my family keep our cars running reliably for years, way beyond what most people experience. So in this video, I'm breaking down 15 easy and totally legit engine maintenance tricks, all for under $20 each, that mechanics definitely don't want you to know. And number one is honestly like a real-life cheat code. Be sure to watch until the end, because we're starting with the basics and building up to some advanced tricks you definitely don't want to miss. Let's get started. When a lot of people think about car maintenance, they just go straight to their mechanic for scheduled services and completely ignore the visual inspection of rubber components under the hood. What I do, and what I want you to do, is stop that. Stop that right now. That's why my tip number 15 is to get in the habit of doing regular visual inspections of all your rubber hoses, seals, and weather strips. A visual inspection is one of the easiest and most powerful ways to protect your engine, and almost nobody does it. Here's why it matters. Rubber parts like hoses, seals, and belts are right at the front lines. They face heat, pressure, and chemicals every time you drive. Over time, these parts dry out, crack, bulge, or even start leaking, and you can actually spot most of these problems with just your eyes. To do this check, just pop the hood and look at every rubber hose you can see. Focus on things like coolant lines, vacuum hoses, and power steering hoses. A good hose should look smooth and feel firm, not soft, brittle, or swollen. If you see cracks, bulges, or areas that look worn out, that hose is on borrowed time. The same goes for your serpentine belt. If it's frayed, shiny, or missing chunks, it's time to swap it out. Don't forget the rubber seals and weather strips around the engine bay. These keep out dirt and moisture, but if they're hard, peeling, or pulling away, they can let in stuff that wears your engine down faster. Take a quick look at your fluids too. Coolant should be clear and brightly colored, green, orange, or pink, depending on your car. If it's brown, rusty, or cloudy, that's a red flag. Check your power steering and brake fluid levels while you're at it. Low or dirty fluid usually means there's a leak or it's overdue for a change. The best part? You don't need any fancy tools or special skills for this. If you spot a bad hose or dirty coolant, you can fix it before it fails. Most hoses cost less than $30, but if one bursts while you're driving, you could be looking at thousands in repairs. A simple $20 fix can save your engine from a $3,000 disaster. Rubber parts need extra attention because they break down even if you barely drive your car. Heat from the engine and chemicals from oil and coolant slowly destroy the rubber from the inside out. That's why cars that sit for months often have more rubber problems than cars that get driven every day. The whole inspection takes just 5 or 10 minutes. Do it once a month or before any big trip. Even if you don't do your own repairs, knowing what to look for puts you in control at the shop. You'll know what's urgent and what can wait. Now let's say you're not sure what else to inspect, or you're not an expert at engine maintenance. That's where tip number 14 comes in. Take a look at your timing belt yourself instead of paying a mechanic for an inspection. This can help you prevent catastrophic failure, because it's pretty obvious when timing belts are deteriorating. If you catch it early, you can avoid repairs that cost thousands. In interference engines, if the timing belt fails, the pistons and valves can collide, which means bent valves, damaged pistons, or even a complete engine replacement. That's $3,000 to $5,000 gone. I've seen it happen. A timing belt snapped in an interference engine, and it meant a full engine rebuild, over $4,000. Manufacturers usually recommend replacing the belt every 60,000 to 100,000 miles, but checking it in between is smart. Just look for cracks, fraying, or glazing on the parts of the belt you can see. We do this inspection whenever we're checking other things in the timing belt area. This simple visual check has saved more than a few engines by catching timing belts that were going bad before their scheduled replacement. Now picture this. You're driving down a hill and a warning light pops up for your brakes, but by then, it's often too late. That's why tip number 13 is to use brake fluid test strips. You set up your maintenance routine once, and then the problems just come to you as they're developing. Here's how brake fluid testing works. Not sponsored, by the way. You use simple brake fluid test strips that cost around $5, just like pool test strips, and they instantly tell you if your brake fluid needs to be changed. Brake fluid absorbs moisture over time, which lowers its boiling point and can corrode your brake system. But a test strip shows you exactly when it's time for fresh brake fluid. You might be thinking, don't mechanics check this during service? Am I using some weird third-party thing? Nope. This is totally legit. It's not complicated, it's just a test that does the work for you. You'll still get the fluid changed at a shop, but this test helps you know when it's needed. This little test is exactly how my family and I have avoided brake failures. The first time we tried it, our Toyota's brake fluid was contaminated, even though we'd been going to the dealer for service. We got the fluid replaced for about $100, which saved us from an $800 repair if the ABS pump or other parts had been damaged by corrosion. Brake fluid should usually be replaced every 2 to 3 years, no matter how much you drive. When moisture gets above 3%, the boiling point drops, and you risk brake failure if you're driving hard. The test is simple. Dip the strip in your brake fluid reservoir and match the color to the chart. One more thing people ask. Is this something where you need to rush out and replace your whole brake system tonight? Most of the time, contamination builds up slowly, so you have time to plan the replacement, but you'll want to act within a few weeks if the brake fluid strip test shows a problem, because brake safety isn't something you want to put off. Now you might be thinking, I don't even know if my engine needs warm-up time, and I'd have to ask my mechanic. That's why tip number 12 is all about the engine warm-up routine. In cold weather, especially with turbo engines, there's a routine that guarantees proper engine protection if you follow it. If you use the right warm-up, you can protect your engine right away. And if you realize your habits need to change, you can always adjust for full protection. I've used this to my advantage more than once. One time, I wasn't sure how long to warm up my turbo engine, so I looked up the manufacturer's advice and found the perfect routine. Another time, I found an even better method and switched to that, which made a real difference in engine life. It was like a cheat code, a do-over for cold starts. Modern engines don't need the long warm-ups that old cars did, but they do benefit from 30 to 60 seconds of idling before you drive, especially when it's cold. For turbo engines, this is even more important since the turbo spins super fast and needs good oil flow to stay healthy. Some people think turbos need more maintenance than regular engines, but if you take care of them, they're just as reliable. Modern turbo tech and synthetic oils make a big difference compared to the old days. Still, turbo engines are more sensitive to how they're used. If you only take short trips, the turbo might not get fully warmed up, which can shorten its life. Longer drives that let everything get up to temperature are better. Use full synthetic oil, like Toyota Genuine Motor Oil or Mobil 1 in 0W16 or 0W20, especially for cold starts. My next favorite maintenance trick is tip number 11, which costs less than $10, but can bring back lost power and fuel economy. It's cleaning the throttle body. The throttle body controls how much air goes into your engine, and over time, it gets dirty with carbon deposits. This can cause rough idle, hesitation, and lower gas mileage. A can of throttle body cleaner costs $7 to $10, and cleaning takes about 15 to 20 minutes. This quick job can improve throttle response, smooth out the idle, and help you get back lost. MPG. For direct injection engines, which are everywhere now, this cleaning is even more important since they get carbon buildup faster. Direct injection turbo engines are especially prone to this, so regular cleaning is key for good airflow and combustion. Doing this every 30,000 miles can keep you from needing expensive carbon removal later. Some people say the improvement is only temporary, but regular throttle body cleaning makes a big difference in the long run. But here's what's coming up. We're moving from basic cleaning to time-based maintenance that almost everyone ignores. And we're building up to that $15 part that can prevent total engine failure. This next tip is for vehicles that aren't driven much. Tip number 10 is to never skip your time-based oil changes. Low mileage cars have unique challenges because oil and fluids break down over time, even if you barely drive. For example, Toyota recommends maintenance every 6 months or 8,000 kilometers, whichever comes first. Oil goes bad from oxidation and moisture, even when you're not driving. If you drive less than 8,000 kilometers a year, you still need to change oil every 6 months. This is even more important for cars that make lots of short trips, since the engine doesn't fully warm up, and that speeds up oil contamination and sludge. Turbo engines don't always need more frequent oil changes, but they do need higher quality oil and coolant that can handle heat and pressure. These fluids cost more, and sticking to the schedule is critical to avoid turbo damage. Use full synthetic oil to get the best protection, especially if you're going longer between changes. Some people say once a year is enough for very low mileage, but I recommend sticking to the 6-month interval to avoid risk. For tip number 9, here's a $5 task that most mechanics skip, and it's amazing how many people overlook it. Grease fitting lubrication. A lot of vehicles have grease fittings, also called zerks, on suspension parts, drive shafts, and other moving pieces that need to be greased now and then. These little metal fittings take grease from a grease gun, which costs about $20, and the grease itself is only $5 and lasts a long time. Greasing these points every 10,000 to 20,000 miles keeps parts from wearing out early and saves you from expensive repairs. This is exactly how classic car owners keep their cars running for decades. Some old cars have over 20 grease points that need attention every 1,000 miles, but most modern cars have fewer and need less frequent service. I've saved thousands on suspension repairs just by greasing these fittings. Ball joints, tie rods, and universal joints last way longer when they're kept lubricated. It only takes 15 to 30 minutes, but it can save you $500 to $1,000 in repairs. But let's say you're dealing with something more advanced than basic lubrication. That's where tip number 8 comes in: intake system cleaning. Unlike old engines where fuel helps clean the intake valves, direct injection sprays fuel right into the combustion chamber, so carbon can build up on the intake valves. This blocks airflow, cuts power, hurts gas mileage, and can even cause misfires. Professional cleaning costs $300 to $500, but you can do preventative cleaning yourself for $15 to $20 with an intake cleaner every 15,000 to 20,000 miles. You just spray the cleaner into the intake while the engine's running, and it dissolves the carbon. This is especially important for turbocharged direct injection engines, which get carbon buildup even faster. This cleaning, sometimes involving walnut blasting or specialized chemical treatments, adds to maintenance expenses, but is crucial for preserving performance and preventing long-term damage. Now, picture this. You're driving your turbocharged car, and oil vapors are being recirculated through your intake system, coating everything with oil residue, but you could prevent this contamination completely. That's why tip number 7 is to install an oil catch can. Here's what most people don't understand. Your PCV system sucks oil vapors out of your engine and feeds them back into the intake. On direct injection engines, this creates carbon buildup on intake valves because fuel never washes over them like it does on older engines. With an oil catch can, you install a small device costing $30 to $100 that traps oil vapors before they reach your intake. I've seen these cans collect measurable amounts of oil, proving they do catch contamination that would otherwise coat your valves. But here's the reality check. If catch cans were truly necessary, manufacturers would install them from the factory. They don't, because catch cans add maintenance complexity and potential failure points. Most people forget to drain them, and a full catch can cause more problems than having no catch can at all. The maintenance is real. You need to drain the can every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. In cold weather, you get a chocolate milk mixture of oil and water that can freeze. Neglect this and you risk overflow, leaks, or system clogs. Some mechanics argue catch cans are unnecessary snake oil. Others swear by them for turbocharged and direct injection engines. The truth is somewhere in between. For daily drivers under warranty, you might not see much benefit. For long-term owners of turbo or direct injection engines, they can extend valve cleaning intervals. Installation is straightforward, but you need the right type. Cheap, breather-style catch cans don't work properly. You want a sealed system that maintains vacuum with internal baffles. Brands like JLT and Moroso work, but JLT units work better with added steel mesh inside. But what if you want to know if your engine actually has hidden problems before they become expensive repairs? That's where tip number 6 comes in. Do a crankcase pressure test. Here's the deal. Your engine creates pressure inside the crankcase when the pistons move up and down. Too much pressure means something's wrong inside. You can test this yourself for $20 instead of paying a mechanic $300 to tell you the same thing. You need a simple pressure gauge called a manometer. Get one at Harbor Freight for $15 to $20. The Actron CP7835 works great, or any basic crankcase pressure tester will do. Here's exactly how you do it. First, warm up your engine to normal operating temperature. Cold engines give false readings. Pull out your oil dipstick and stick the gauge tube right down the dipstick hole. Start the engine and let it idle. Normal pressure should be under 2 inches of water column. That's about 0.07 psi. If you see 4 inches of water or more, you've got problems. Could be worn piston rings, blown head gasket, or clogged PCV system. The good news, you caught it early. Worn rings cost about $1,500 to fix, but a complete engine rebuild runs $4,000 or more. I've done this test many times. One time, I found a bad PCV system before it caused oil leaks. Another time, I caught worn rings and planned repairs before the engine died completely. It's like seeing inside your engine without taking it apart. But what about those weird warning lights that pop up on your dashboard? That's why tip number 5 is to always check your coolant bypass valve when you see engine maintenance warnings. Most people see a check engine light and panic, but sometimes it's just one small valve trying to save your whole engine. The coolant bypass valve controls coolant flow when your engine warms up. When this valve cracks, and they all crack, coolant leaks onto wires and electrical parts. On Toyota RAV4s, you'll see engine maintenance required around 30 to 50,000 miles. On other cars, you might get check engine lights, temperature warnings, or electrical problems that make no sense. Here's how to find it. Look near your thermostat housing. That's where the upper radiator hose connects to the engine. The bypass valve looks like a small plastic part with wires connected to it. If you see white crusty stuff around it, that's dried coolant and your valve is done. The valve costs $40 to $60 at any parts store. Labor runs $400 to $600 because it's buried pretty deep. But ignore it, and the coolant will fry your computer, overheat your engine, or both. That's $3,000 to $5,000 gone. I've seen this warning as early as 30,000 miles. Fix it for $600 to $700 total. Or buy a new engine later. Don't ignore weird warnings. Sometimes it's this $30 part screaming at you before it kills your engine. Now here's where things get really interesting. Tip number 4 is to clean your EGR valve to stop engine overheating and prevent head gasket failure. EGR stands for exhaust gas recirculation. It takes exhaust gas and feeds it back into your engine to lower combustion temperatures and reduce emissions. Sounds weird, but it works. Problem is, exhaust gas is dirty. Carbon builds up inside the EGR valve like sludge in a drain pipe. When that happens, the valve can't close right and you get rough idle, bad gas mileage, and misfires. Worse yet, if it gets really clogged, your engine runs too hot and can blow the head gasket. Your EGR valve is usually a round metal part about 3 inches across, mounted on the intake manifold with a vacuum hose and electrical connector. On most cars, it's right on top where you can see it. On others, you might need to remove an engine cover first. Here's how to clean it. Remove the 2 or 3 bolts holding it on, usually 10mm bolts. Take out the valve and spray it with carburetor cleaner or EGR cleaner. Use an old toothbrush to scrub the carbon out of the passages. The valve itself should move freely when you push on it with your finger. Don't forget the passages in the intake manifold where the valve mounts. Spray cleaner in there and use a wire brush or pipe cleaner to get the carbon out. If those passages are blocked, cleaning the valve won't help. This job costs $10 in cleaner and takes about an hour. Shops charge $200 to $400 for the same thing. I've fixed rough running engines just by cleaning the EGR. One car that was misfiring and running terrible was completely fixed after a good EGR cleaning. Saved over $1,000 in other repairs they wanted to do. If you drive a Prius or Lexus CT, do this every 50 to 100,000 miles. Those hybrids are really sensitive to EGR problems. But now we're moving to the really advanced stuff. Tip number 3 is the free 2-minute habit that can double the life of your turbocharger. Always let your engine cool down after hard driving. For turbocharged engines, letting the engine idle for 30 to 60 seconds after a spirited drive or highway run gives the turbo a chance to cool down while oil is still circulating. Turbochargers function by harnessing exhaust gas energy to spin a turbine, which compresses intake air, increasing engine power and efficiency without enlarging engine displacement. Turbos spin at insane speeds and get super hot. If you shut off the engine right away, oil can burn onto the bearings and cause early turbo failure, which can cost $1,000 to $2,000 or more. I've owned turbo cars for years, and this simple habit has helped my turbos last well past their expected life. It costs nothing and can save you thousands. Modern turbos are way more reliable than they used to be, but only if you treat them right. Just take that extra minute before shutting off the engine and your turbo will thank you. We're almost to that $15 fix, but first, tip number 2 is to inspect your engine mounts before they fail and cause major drivetrain damage. Engine mounts keep your engine in place and absorb vibrations. If they start to fail, you'll notice clunks, rattles, or the engine moving too much during gear shifting. If you catch a bad mount early, you can replace it for a few $100s and avoid damaging your transmission, exhaust, or wiring, which could run you over $2,000 in repairs. You can apply the brakes and briefly rev the engine in drive to reveal excessive movement indicating mount failure. I always check for cracked rubber, leaking hydraulic mounts, or extra movement when shifting. One time, I caught a failing mount before it let the engine slam into the firewall, which would have been a disaster. Simple checks like this can save you a fortune. And now, my absolute favorite way to save money on engine repairs. The trick that saved car owners $25,000 this year alone, and the one I use to prevent total engine failure for just 15 bucks. Tip number 1 is to replace your PCV valve. The PCV, or positive crankcase ventilation valve, is a tiny part with a huge job. It controls the gases that build up inside your engine and keeps oil where it belongs. If it sticks or clogs, you can get oil leaks, sludge, rough idle, or even a blown engine. The crazy part? Most people never replace it until it's too late. A clogged PCV valve is either stuck opened or stuck closed. A stuck open PCV valve allows oil to enter the intake manifold and cause oil burning and spark plug fouling. Now you might be wondering how you know if your PCV valve is going bad. Here's what I do. First, I pull out the valve and give it a shake. If you hear a rattling sound, that's a good sign it's working. I'll also pinch the PCV hose while the engine's idling and listen for a clicking sound. And if you ever notice a strong fuel smell in your oil, that's another clue the PCV valve might need attention. A new PCV valve usually costs under $15, and swapping it out can turn a $4,000 engine rebuild into a quick, cheap fix. I've seen engines with oil leaks and bad performance come back to life just by changing this one part. It's the ultimate example of smart maintenance, a tiny investment that can save you thousands and keep your engine running for years. So, from replacing the PCV valve and checking your engine mounts, to cleaning the EGR valve and letting your turbo cool down, these simple tips are your best defense against those expensive engine repairs no one wants to face. But here's the thing. If you really want your car to last as long as possible, there are a few more secrets that almost nobody talks about. In fact, most mechanics would rather you never find out about them. So if you're serious about making your car last 300,000 miles or more, you need to check out my next video right here. I break down the maintenance secrets that can literally add years to your car's life and save you thousands along the way. Thanks so much for watching, and happy motoring.